Hi everyone. Today's lesson is on congruent triangles. So we're going to talk about what it means for two triangles to be congruent, and then look at some examples of what that would look like. So first of all, congruent triangles. What does that mean? All it means is that congruent triangles are two triangles essentially with the same size and shape. So that's what congruent triangles means. Just triangles that have the same size and the same shape. Um, so to kind of expand on that, this means that um, corresponding parts of those triangles are congruent. Okay. So in other words, sides and angles are congruent. Corresponding sides and corresponding angles. All right. So when we know that two triangles are congruent, then we can write a congruency statement. A congruency statement is just that. It's a statement that we write that states triangle A is congruent to triangle B. And the way that looks is, so let's say we have triangle here, so let's say A, B, C, and then we have the second triangle over here. Those may not look exactly congruent, but we're going to, just to save time, we're going to say that they are. So let's say this is triangle FED, and let's put some symbols on here. So let's say that angle A is congruent to angle D, angle B, mark it with 2 marks, is congruent to angle E, and then angle C we'll mark with 3 marks, that's congruent to angle F. And again, they don't look like they're congruent, but just bear with me here. Now let's say that this side AB is congruent to side ED, BC, side BC is congruent to side FE, and then finally side AC is congruent to side DF, or FD. When we know that all 6 parts from this first triangle are congruent to corresponding parts from the second triangle, then we can write a valid congruency statement. And when we write our congruency statement, corresponding parts must match. All right, so what that means is if I state a triangle A, B, C is congruent, so there's my congruent symbol. If I look at my second triangle, which angle from the second one corresponds with angle A? So that would be D. So in my second name, I would have to list D to correspond or must match with A. B corresponds with E. B and E are congruent, so that means side for angle B corresponds with angle E, and then C corresponds with F. So that's how I would write my congruency statement. Okay, and that's a valid congruency statement. Okay? Next, let's look at something that you'll see occasionally. CPCTC. What does this mean? So what this right here means, CPCTC, all that is, that's short to say that corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So that's your CPCTC. All that is, it's a fancy way to say that if we know that two triangles are congruent, then we know that the corresponding parts of those two triangles must also be congruent. Okay? That's all that statement says. Corresponding parts of known congruent triangles are congruent. Okay? So we use this as a justification or a reason. We use it in proofs a lot. Right? So let's look at some examples here. So let's say our first example, we have triangle L is congruent to triangle PQR. What I'm going to do is I'm going to list all the congruent angles and sides. I'm going to list all of the congruent parts given my congruency statement. So this congruency statement we take as fact. This statement says that triangle JKL is factually, in fact, congruent to triangle PQR. So now we're going to list out our congruent angles and our congruent sides. A lot of times you'll see this in a table format. It won't always be in a table format, but it could be. So if we're listing out our congruent angles, I'm going to say that angle J is congruent to angle what? We say angle P. Perfect. Okay. Angle K is congruent to angle Q, and angle L is congruent to angle R. And again, you just look at where they're positioned in the statement. Sides, you kind of do the same way, in that if I have side JK of this triangle, my first two letters, that's going to be congruent to side PQ, my first two letters. Now if we draw these triangles out and label them, let's just say J, K, L, and then here we have P, Q, R. It kind of makes it a little bit easier to see the sides. So you've got JK is congruent to PQ. Then I'm going to say KL, which is my second two letters in my statement, is congruent to QR. And then finally, my first and third letters, JL, is congruent to PR. In the picture, it would look like this. 3 lines, 3 ticks, and 3 ticks. Okay? And that's your basics of congruent triangles. Going on time, 9:15. Let's take a look at one more example with numbers thrown in. So let's say for this example, we're given the triangle STW is congruent to triangle F or BFN. All right. So here, go ahead and get a picture drawn of it, so you can kind of see the picture as well. So we have triangle STW, and try to draw it to look kind of similar. And we got BFN. Let's say side, I got these backwards on this one. So I can fix that. This should be WT. Make sure I got the other one right. Yeah. Alright, so let's say we've got 9 centimeters on this one. This angle, 67 degrees. And then this side is 17 centimeters. Then on this one we have 14 centimeters, 82 degrees. Okay, and then we're going to try to find the measurements of these different sides. So let's look for BN, TW, BF, measure angle W, measure angle B, and measure angle F. See what we can do. So we look at our statement. Sometimes your statement is easier to use than the diagram or the pictures. And if I'm looking for what's congruent to BN, well, BN is my first and third letters. So that means that SW has to be the same as BN. So if I look over here, SW is 9 centimeters. So that means BN has to be 9 centimeters. Okay? TW. If I look here, TW is my second and third. Has to match FN. Well, I know that FN is 14. So that means TW has to be 14 centimeters. See the process? And then finally, let's look at BF. This is my first two. That has to match ST. I know that ST is 17, so that means that BF must also have to be 17 centimeters. Okay? Now let's look at our angle measures. Angle W, that's my third angle, has to be the same as angle N. So angle N is 82 degrees right here. So that means W has to be 82 degrees. Angle B has to match angle S. S is 67 degrees, so angle B has to be 67 degrees. And then finally, angle F has to be the same as angle T. Uh-oh. We don't have either one of those. So, what do we do? What I would do is, I know that within every triangle, my three angles have to add up to 180. So I know I have an 82 and a 67. So I'm going to subtract those from 180 to get 31 degrees for the remaining angles. So that would be angle F. All right. So that's it. If you have questions, leave a comment. We went over 10 minutes a little bit. I apologize for that. But that's all of your examples. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Hit the like button. If you want to see more of these, hit the subscribe button. All right, appreciate it. You guys have a great day. Thanks.